Welcome to Coffee with the Sarlos. We are your hosts of the show, Karen and Kelly Sarlo. Whether you're struggling with grief or you just need answers, we connect you with spirit to find relief, clarity, and direction in life. We can help you move forward.
Hello, Kelly.
Hello.
How are you?
I've only had one cup of coffee, so we'll see how this goes. They'll be able to answer you better than I will.
Okay. We can poll them, or we can break, and at some point you can show up with a mug of coffee if you'd like.
Gratitude.
Okay. This podcast, I tell you, Kelly, I'm gonna preface it, or I'm gonna begin it by not just being in the client session.
Okay.
I'm going to say that all of this is so detailed. It started way earlier in a day when I didn't start my day till like 1 o'clock. So I had the whole morning. And that morning, it was like I had a couple in my head talking so many times. So as I would go to the physio appointment, as I would go to the bank, I could hear this conversation and many conversations between two people over and over again. But each time a little bit more detail and a little bit more understanding, and I could see the evolution in the conversation over time. And I thought, this is really interesting. I pray to God this is a client this afternoon, because if it is, it's going to be just an absolute wonderful conversation with them, because I can actually see progress. And sure enough, I was so glad, hon. I was so happy that I got to that point, and I think it was mid-afternoon, that I could hear this conversation starting up again just before the person showed up on Zoom. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get to deliver all of these messages of my whole morning. But there's always that anticipation of, what if I'm wrong?
Oh my God, yeah.
What if I open up and I say this and the person goes, no, that's not me, like this. So anyway, when the session started and after I got through consent, the woman just sat there, and her name, and now of course, make up the names. I'm going to call her Hoopy.
Hoopy.
Yep.
Where did this come from?
I don't remember, because this has been in our queue for a while, and like I have several names and so anyway, so Hoopy says to me, Karen, do you think that you can connect to somebody who's crossed over? And I said, yes. I said, but can you just tell me, or can you just not say anything? Can you give me a minute? And she goes, well, you always say that we have to pick our person. And I said, yeah, bugger of buggers. I make rules and the spirit guides break them.
Yep.
Like this. And I try to hold the humans accountable to the rules, only to have the spirit guides break them. Son of a gun, eh? And I said, just give me 1 second. I said, and now I'm going to make up the name of the person that she wants me to channel. And I'm going to call him Marco. Totally made up name. And I said, are you looking for a partner who's passed? And she said, yes, I am. And I said, okay. I said, then I believe that I've been talking to him all morning, and I had the whole morning off. And she goes, okay. And I said, and it's all about the conversations that the two of you had over your partnership. And she goes, okay. And she just kind of giggles. And she goes, can I tell you something in a minute? And I said, yes, but I need some time first. I said, can I say a couple of things? And she goes, yeah. She goes, and then I want to interject, and then I want you to continue. But she says, I just want to do something for you in a moment. So I started it, and I said, so I went to a physio appointment, and I had this conversation with Marco, and it was between the two of you. And she goes, okay. And I said, and it was about a particular thing in your relationship. And then as my morning went along, I went to the bank, and then I stopped into the grocery store, and it's like the same conversation on repeat, but the conversation progresses. It actually improves. And she went, can I say what I want to say now? And I said, yeah, Hoopy, what do you want to tell me? She goes, that's the conversation I've been having with Marco all morning.
Okay, can we pause?
Yes.
I love to point out for clients how they can get like the best session possible, right? By coming in with an understanding or a good healthy attitude. And it's so important while you guys are super excited to share your affirmations or to share just information with us, period. It's so important that you let the person channeling speak first. Or I'll just say or speak on behalf of Karen, because had Hoopy started the session and been like, so I've been talking to my husband all morning and I wanted him to come through and say this. It sucks when a medium sits there and goes, yeah, that's what I heard. And you're like, but did you? Or are you just saying that because I said it? You let the spirit world go first. You let the medium or psychic go first and say, hey, this is what I've been getting all morning. And then you get to excitedly say, yes, that's the affirmation. Yes, that's correct. Yes, this is what I did. Because it means more to you as the client when it comes from us first. Because we're not just giving you yes answers or yes, like people-pleasing things, which we would never do, but you don't necessarily know to trust that, right?
Beautifully done, Kelly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So many people start their sessions and a lot of my regulars will say like, okay, I need to tell you something. And I'm like, don't, save it to the end. And now they say, can we carve out 5 minutes at the end so I can give you affirmations or I can tell you certain things. And it's like, yes, let the spirit world go first and fill you up with this like wonder and awe.
So then she says, okay. She says, Hoopy says to me, I've been having conversations in my head with him all morning. She goes, so I just wanted to validate that for you. And she says, and I'm just going to let you continue. And then when you hit pause, Karen, I'll validate or tell you if that's spot on or if it isn't or whatever. And she said, is that okay? And I said, oh yeah. I said, that's great. And I said, so this is how it starts. So I go to the beginning and I say to Hoopy, okay, I said, at the beginning of the relationship, I said, the kind of conversations and the things that Marco tells me about your relationship is that he looked at you and thought, my God, you're selfish. And she goes, like this. And I said, but in fact, you weren't selfish. You were considering yourself. And she goes, And I said, but he accused you of selfishness because others accused you of selfishness. And he took that on and brought that to you from somebody else. And she went, oh, yes. And I said, and in particular, his family and your family. Like this, not your friend group, but his family and your family. And she goes, oh, yes. And I said, and then, and at other times, some of the examples I could hear was where you were setting a boundary with somebody else. You were being very clear in your communication. And he would say, oh my God, can't you say that in a kinder way? Do you hear yourself? And she would say, I do hear myself. Yes. And I noticed that her conversation right from the first conversation was that way. And I could hear his as being very accusatory, attacking, where he was trying to put her into a defensive stance, but I could hear her refusal to be in the defensive stance. And that was what really hit me when I'm listening as I'm laying getting needled, dry needled on the physio table face down. And I can hear her just like this, but I can hear in him anxiety. I hear his fear, but he's not aware of it in the least. So he's just coming at her with, well, my mom said that you said this to her today. That I can't believe that you told my mom and my family that you weren't bringing anything to the Christmas dinner. Seriously? Like everybody chips in. You expect my mom and my sister to do it all? And she would come back with, I don't have the time. I don't have the energy to do it. I'm busy. Or they asked, and I told them in advance that I couldn't participate. I told them I could order something. That was my share. And he would go, order? We don't order. We make everything homemade. Come on. This is an Italian family, or this is a, whatever, fill in the blank family. We don't order. We cook. And she would just look at him and go, but she wouldn't engage with him.
I like her.
Yeah. She wouldn't engage. She would just simply say something with clarity and directness, but she never went down what you and I call content tubes with him.
Yeah.
And he tried like a motherfucker to drag her down every kind of content tube he could.
And like they tailspin too when they're trying to drag you down the content tube and they see it's not working and they just like, they don't know what to grasp at. So they just start spinning in their anxiety.
Yes.
And amping things up. And that's when people like Hoopy get calmer.
Yes, because she's observing him losing his shit in a content tube with his family.
I'm good. You okay?
Yes. And so as I'm listening all through the morning, so now I'm in the bank and I'm just talking to the teller and I'm doing my mortgage stuff and I'm doing my payments and I can hear this conversation going and I'm smiling and the teller's looking at me like, "You okay there, Karen?" I'm like, "Yes, I am." And I can hear her and I can feel her calmness and her being sure of herself because her self-esteem is high. And then I can feel Marco when I hear him and I hear the conversations that he was having in the past, and I feel anxiety. So all morning, my emotions are flipping from this high self-esteem level to this low self-esteem, anxiety, depression-inducing stuff. And I'm flip-flopping all morning, and it's like, oh my God. So personally, I found that hard as somebody receiving that kind of conversation. And I can feel the difference in a couple. And I remember at one point pausing and thinking, wow, imagine that energy in sex. Imagine that energy in intimacy, in love, in touch, where he's coming at it with all that anxiety and she's coming at it with that level of self-esteem and calmness. And I thought, wow, is it ever hard for the two of them to actually make a connection to each other? And then actually carry out that connection in intimate touch, which is just simply a hug or a kiss, where he's giving her a peck and she's looking for a kiss, where he's looking just to like hold her hand loosely and she's looking for a nice firm grip, an embrace, a caress. And it was like, wow, could you ever see where he was like withholding, withdrawing, pulling away, sabotaging without even knowing that he was doing it. And then you could see where she was fully showing up and then feeling his rejection, but he has no idea that he is presenting himself with rejection.
And then she also has to, and hopefully people are listening to this to draw their own parallel. If she's got all this awareness of him spinning out and her being okay, she desires the connection. She has to, like you said, show up fully, then really see the reality of where he's at and know how to healthily detach so as to not take the rejection personally, because that's just where he's at. But then also resolve herself to the fact that that's the most connection she's going to be able to get. Because it's either I'm showing up for you, right? Or I'm emotionally detaching so I can't be taken from, right? I'm going to be over here with my energy, my solidness, my sureness, while you're over there doing what you need, right? So you're constantly trying to connect, but create enough detachment so that you're not taking it personally or getting hurt, right? Or expecting too much. So there's a constant like undulating energy that's happening, this back and forth energy of, okay, can we connect? Can we not connect?
And I feel it. I feel that as the channeler. I feel that all morning and I want to have a goddamn nap. I am so tired just from picking up what she's experiencing and how hard she's working and how, I'm going to say how he's not working. Because she's the only one working in that relationship. He's not actually doing any healthy work. He's doing unhealthy activities. Believing that he's in the relationship and that he's showing up as a partner for her, which is mind-boggling to me now. So then I come home, I'm standing in the kitchen, and I'm standing at the sink thinking, oh my.
So glad you're single? We all know that was your first thought.
I'm not going to say no.
I know my mom. She probably stood outside in her shed, looked around, and was like, I'm single. I got energy. I'm okay.
And she did say in my shed, because I freaking love my shed.
Karen goes and stands in her individual rooms, outside and inside, and just sits in gratitude for what she is able to provide for herself.
Yes.
And the space that she has created for herself that is just, as you guys can see too over Instagram, peaceful and harmonious every day.
Yes. And on that little note, now that we've gone down that content tube, this past weekend, I sat in every single chair in my house over the weekend. Every dining room chair to have different meals, the bar top, both chairs. Every section of the sectional in the living room. Single chairs in the art room. I came up here and laid down here to have a nap. You're right, Kelly. I take up every single space in my own home. You're absolutely right about that. But back to the story. So I'm back in the kitchen. I'm holding on to the sink. I'm just holding on to the counter like, oh, please tell me this gets better. Like this. And it gets a lot worse. So I'm just standing there and I think, okay, I really have to listen to this now. And I'm home, so I'm really going to concentrate on it. And I start chopping vegetables because it's just a great place to really concentrate on what the guides are giving and what they want me to hear. And I hear a conversation, like a podcast, like the TV's on in the house. And it's so loud and so clear. And I hear him approach her and to create an argument, once again, about what his mom and his sisters are doing and his family. And he's coming to defend them to her. And he's going to question her healthiness, but he has no idea it's her healthiness. It's just her attitude, he calls it.
Oh, can I reword this?
Yes.
Honey, you're creating problems for me and my mummy.
Yes.
And I'm uncomfortable standing up to my mummy and my sister. So can you go fix it and not be you? Get fucked, Marco.
Yes. You did that beautifully, and you just ruined the next part of my notes.
You're welcome. I love my job. Now, I also want to say this too, because maybe first timers would be like, holy fuck, she's ruthless. I am. I will also say this. This is deep-seated attachment issues.
Yeah.
I have a ton of compassion for Marco and why he can't stand up to mummy in his adulthood. It feels impossible. There's a reason that he feels more comfortable accusing and blaming his wife of healthy boundaries than standing up to his adult parental figure.
Yeah.
And there are really wonderful ways that you can work through this in a healthy dynamic. It's possible to come out of these things, and you have talked about the evolution of their conversations. So hopefully this is going in a great direction. And I will say this too, it often does get worse before it gets better.
Yes.
So I like to illustrate things in stark contrast so you guys can understand what the fuck is happening.
Yeah.
Hence the baby voice that I just used. And I want you to understand that there are great tools and there's a ton of compassion from both of us where we understand why this happens and how to go about helping yourself.
I like that you used a baby voice for him coming to his wife at that point, because we can look at our husbands and see a very manly body. Actually, one that, we might want to push right into the bedroom, right? So we can see the man physically. We can see how he provides with the nice home we're standing in. We can see the children that he can procreate. And we don't understand that he's still the boy. So we can get very confused, and I'm trying to point that out. There's confusion because our hormones and all of these other things that are evidence, the children running around and the house and the hot tub and all that stuff can confuse us at times to believing we are with a man or a woman, whatever the case may be, or they, whatever it is, and not recognize that the behavior, the emotional stuff that we are unpacking is the child behavior and is the attachment style, which is exactly what we're talking about. So I'm listening in the conversation because I know this, I know all this stuff, but I'm listening now very acutely because I have the ability to be able to go, okay, does Marco get it or not get it? What happens? What am I going to tell Hoopy at 2 p.m. when I see her? Because we have dead Hoopy and we have a live Hoopy, right? So we have to parse out all of this very quickly.
Wait, what? I thought the client was Hoopy.
Pardon me. Yes, Hoopy's the
Dead
client.
Marco and
dead
alive
Marco.
Okay, her husband's passed.
Yes,
Woo, I was
the
like,
husband's
plot
passed.
twist.
No, sorry. Marco's dead. Hoopy is alive. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, so where is dead Marco and where's alive Marco? Because I have to be able to differentiate highly accurately in order to be a good medium. Right?
Yeah, like how much did he get before he passed versus how much has he gotten since he's passed?
And some clients want to split hairs on that. So like I have to be really freaking prepared. And I'm not a therapist. So I have to be as prepared as I can be with the guide's help, Marco's help, and my own abilities. So I hear the conversation where Marco comes storming in the door to have another conversation as a 2-year-old man, to be able to defend his sisters and his mother against his wife one more time. And I feel the energy and the anxiety and the depression that Marco is in, like a mountain of shit on him. And my heart breaks for this boy, because he's done none of his own work to show up as an emotionally secure and mentally capable partner to a grown woman. And it's just like my heart breaks for him. But at the same time, I know there's another part of me that's annoyed as fuck with him. Because this is 2024 and he has every kind of ability at his fingertips to grow up to be a man. And he's worked damn hard to avoid it. And by that, I mean the video games, the TV shows, the movies, the alcohol, the mushrooms,
Oh, wow.
Oh, there's a pile of things that this guy's doing to be able to avoid that, including the friend group and the type of men he chooses to hang around that are also man boys, because then if none of them are actually grown-ass men, he doesn't have to feel less than. So it's like, okay, so I'm just like, okay, so what's happening there? So the guides explain that part, and I'm like, okay, thank you. I can understand that. And how he's making sure he's got a whole system to keep him comfy as a 2-year-old grown-ass man. He's worked hard to create that support system, right? And we have to acknowledge that because there are choices. And so I feel that energy of how he's approaching her. Honest to God, Kelly, I burst out in song. I know that sounds silly, but when I felt Hoopy's energy, when he comes in that door, she is so ready for this conversation.
Yeah, I know this.
She is so powerful that I literally came out in singing in my kitchen, and singing just simply meaning I'm in my kitchen going woo-hoo-hoo. Like I am so happy because she has done her work, and she feels like cement. She feels like a brick wall. She feels like a fortress. She feels like a castle. She feels so solid that he is just going to hit a brick wall and bounce right back. Or and I love her energy in this, in that she is confident. She has self-esteem. She has self-respect. She has self-efficacy. She has a self-discipline, self-awareness.
The 6 pillars of self-esteem.
She has them.
I also want to mention too, though you're describing her as a brick wall, it's not to be confused with one of the 15 forms of verbal abuse.
Yes.
Okay. She just means she is solidly grounded in her integrity and her identity.
Yes. And I picked brick wall on purpose because a lot of people think a brick wall is stubbornness. And I'm trying to say that a brick wall can be determination and healthiness. And that sometimes they can feel the same, but they're very different. because she has developed and earned and worked hard at all of the self-esteem pieces to be able to say to Marco, you can come, but you will not crumble. You can approach me, but I will not fall.
And she will not.
She will not.
He does.
Oh, he is definitely going to in this instance. So he comes at her, and she simply says to him, Marco, and I hear the whole conversation. She asks him the question, Marco, what feelings are you uncomfortable with here? Mm-hmm. What are you uncomfortable with? So when you listen to your sisters and your mom talk about your wife, what feelings do you feel that you can't tolerate? Because this is about you not being able to tolerate the feelings that your family bring up in you. And those feelings prompt you to come to me and dump them, and you're hoping to project those into me. And she goes, you're not going to. She says, I'm not taking on any of your feelings of discomfort. You're going to have to sit in them yourself. And she says, so I'm going to ask you what those feelings are. And you need to walk away from your wife and figure out what those feelings are. And when you figure out what they are, you need to book an appointment with a therapist to discuss them, because I'm not your therapist. And I'm not walking you through this one more time. I'm done. I've been to my own therapist, and it's clear to me that you want to project your feelings into me so that I can be uncomfortable, that my husband isn't happy with me. You want me to feel your feelings. And as soon as I feel them, then you can release that valve, because now I feel that. She goes, I'm not going to do that. She goes, so you're going to have to sit in your own feelings of discomfort, because what I'm doing with your family is I am setting healthy boundaries. And what you are uncomfortable with is what happens when somebody is acting in a healthy way with people who are unhealthy. So she says, you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do with that. Mm-hmm. It's not about what I'm going to do with it, because I'm not going to change. I'm going to continue to set my healthy boundaries. I'm going to speak in the way that I do. And all of it is healthy, and I'm not ever going to question it. You want me to question it. You want me to lower my self-esteem. You want me to lower my self-worth. You want me to go back and apologize to them for something that I should not be apologizing for. I'm not going to do any of those things that you want me to do that become more in alignment with your family's system. I refuse to do that. She says, so you're going to have to walk away and figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to feel. And I'm not going to take on any of your feelings, and don't ever come to me with these feelings and these problems ever again. Don't bring up any of this conversation with me ever again. And she says, because if you do, the consequences, I'm out the door. I'm leaving, because I deserve a healthier partner. And so I'm standing there in the kitchen going, holy shit. Okay. So then I look at dead Marco and I go, what the hell did you do? I'm so anxious to hear this answer. What did you do before you died? And he goes, I called the therapist. He goes, I looked at my life and said, wait a minute. She said she's healthy, so why don't I want healthy? I picked this woman because I love her. So there must be qualities in her healthiness that I need and want, actually. I have the hot tub and the house and the home that I want. I have these beautiful children that are behaving more like their mother than they are like my mother and my sisters, and I love my children. But they're more like her than they are like me. So the writing is on the wall that apparently I want to be more like my wife than I do like my mother and my sister. And I think I'm the one I'm the one, she's right, I'm the one with the problem. So he said, so I did go to therapy, and I did do a lot of my work before I passed. And he said, Karen, and now he just starts talking to me. And he said, Karen, I got to the point before I died that I adored Hoopy. He said, I went to therapy for the rest of my life. He says, I never stopped. And he says, and she started sharing the podcasts that she was listening to, the books that she was reading, all of the things that she had been doing. And he said, and I got so into all of it. And he said, I set boundaries with my family. And he said, short story. He says, we ended up walking away from my family because they weren't going to do any of the work. And she is the villain that took the son and the brother away from the family. And he said, but I know the truth to that.
Yeah, so many villains out there.
Yeah, that are actually the superheroes. And he said, I know the truth to that story. He says, so when I see people, or when I saw people in public who said, oh, I heard that your wife did this and blah, blah, blah. He says, I correct that narrative. I stand up for my wife and I say, no, I chose.
Yeah. Also, like, you can word it, I stood up for my wife, which is great. Also, like, you stood up for yourself, because that backhanded comment of, oh, I heard your wife did this and you're alienated from the family. I'm not a mouthless, voiceless victim. I stood by my wife and myself, and we made this decision. You're standing up for you too, right?
Exactly. And he came to learn that, and that he stood up for his children.
Yeah.
And that he was standing up for the family that he wanted. And why he actually chose that woman and wanted to move in that direction, and then found himself one foot in, one foot in the other one that was destroying everything. So then I said, okay, so what do you want me to tell her, like at 2:00 when I see her? And he said, I just want to sit down and I want to tell her, thank you for all of these things. I want to list them. He says, I want to list everything that she did. She's booking an appointment with you because she just wants to hear all of this. She wants to go through and be validated. She just wants to hear that I made the right decision. She knows. You're not going to tell her anything she doesn't know, but she's calling because she wants to hear it again. And she wants to hear the beauty of what the two of us created. She wants to walk out of the session feeling in love with me again. She wants to hear me say it out of my mouth. It's just going to be out of your mouth, but it's me. And he said, and I happily want to show up to say, I chose you. I chose you, and I chose our kids. I think it was girls. I chose you guys. And in that, I found me. I ended up finding my own self-esteem, my own integrity. I finally did the walk that she had walked prior to me. And he said, and that was the beauty of our relationship, was that she ended up being able to support me as I chose those healthier decisions along the way, which then in turn validated her decisions to be healthy in her own life. And I said, well, wait a minute. Did Hoopie have a healthy family? And he goes, oh, no, not at all. And he said, that's why this is so important. And he said she did not have a healthy family. She didn't even have healthy friends. She did this all on her own. And then she picked a partner who wasn't even a healthy partner, and she stood her ground. And then I came to the same place as her. And he said, it's why it's so important for her to hear this and have this visit with me again, because she now has healthier friends. She now has our grown daughters. And he said, she's now got more people that are healthy in her life. Yeah. But way back then, she was so on her own, Karen. And he says, that's why he says, I swear to God, I just call her like my bride in her cape. Instead of like in a gown, I call it the cape. So when I tell Hoopie all of this, she's like, that's exactly why I called. She goes, I just literally made a cup of tea. She said, just to talk to him again. She said, she says, I knew all of this, Karen. None of this is new to me. She says, but it's the best money I've ever spent. She says, I just want to sit here and talk to Marco again about our whole journey. And she says, and the fact that he picked himself first. He didn't pick me to do it for. He learned in therapy that he had to pick to do it for himself, to individuate from his mom and his sisters. And then he became my partner.
Yeah, that's huge. Because if you're doing this to like not lose your partner, and you're like, oh, I'm doing this work for you. Oh my God, the resentment will tear you apart in less than 24 hours, because it's hard fucking work.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't have a healthy why, and love is not a healthy why, by the way, right? Yep. I love you is not a healthy why to do this and commit to this. It has to come back to the love for self, right? it's an isolating journey. It's a lonely thing. It's a hard thing. It's an uncomfortable thing over and over again. So if you're saying, well, I'm going to do this for you, every time you get uncomfortable, you're mad at the other person. Every time you have to do something hard, you're mad at the other person, right? When you're doing it for you, you can sit there and go, okay, I can afford to be uncomfortable. I can afford to do these things. And you've got the support system with a therapist or a coach to actually work through the emotions instead of making them someone else's problem.
Bingo. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so like at the end of the session, this wasn't a client who was looking for clarity. She wasn't looking for direction. She wasn't looking for some of the things that we offer in the sessions. She was looking to sit with Marco again through a medium because he's passed away and have this conversation about the journey of their lives individually, which they really valued, and then together as a couple, and then as parents, and then as friends, and learning that whole process together. So she says to me at the very end of this, she says, I grew up on my own. And she says, and then Marco grew up kind of with me, but also I encouraged him to do his growing up on his own. But he had me to support him, and I didn't have that person. And he said, she says, so I just came back to sit with him again to have that experience one more time.
It's lovely. Happy for you that you do what you do to be able to give those people that opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, goes without saying, but the guides show up all the time for this. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you for listening to Coffee with the Sarlos. If you enjoyed the show today, please be sure to subscribe on your podcast platform and leave a review. New shows will air every other Saturday.